Topaz Workbench. Before we begin, we'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. At the bottom of your screen are multiple application widgets you can use. All the widgets are resizable and movable, so feel free to move them around to get the most out of your console space. You can expand your slide area or maximize it to full screen by clicking on the arrows in the top right corner of the slide area. Today's presentation consists of slides and screen share. For an optimal viewing experience, please ensure that you have checked your system requirements along with bandwidth considerations. Webinars are bandwidth intensive, so closing any unnecessary browser tabs will help conserve your bandwidth. If you have any technical difficulties, please click on the help link located via the question mark widget at the bottom left of your screen, where you will find details about system requirements and frequently asked questions. If you experience a blank screen during the webcast today, please try refreshing your browser or pressing F5. If you have any questions during the webcast, you can submit them through the Q&A widget. We will try to answer these during the webcast, but if a more complete answer is needed or if we run out of time, we will reach out directly. Also, notice the Learn More widget. Here, we've added links to a series of short videos on Topaz demos, Topaz case studies, as well as a copy of today's slide presentation. In addition, we have included a link to the next webcast in our Did You Know webcast series on January 25th, Discovering the Hidden Gems of Compuware iStrobe, which will highlight highly useful but often untapped features of iStrobe. We also like to encourage everyone to fill out our survey before the end of today's presentation, and by submitting your response, you will automatically be entered to win a $50 American Express gift card. There will be 3 lucky winners from today's selected respondents. We are extremely pleased to have as our speakers today Compuware consultant, solution consultant Yvette Santana, and account consultant Andy Hocker. We also have product manager Jim Liebert assisting with questions, so make sure to submit your questions via the Q&A widget. With that, I'd now like to welcome and hand things over to Andy.
Thank you, Janet. Hello, everybody. My name is Andy Hocker. I'm an account consultant for Compuware. With me today is Yvette Santana. Yvette is a senior solution engineer for Compuware. Compuware's Topaz Workbench provides an Eclipse-based IDE that enables developers with a variety of different backgrounds to quickly become productive in a mainframe environment. Over the next 30 minutes or so, Yvette will show you the capabilities of Host Explorer, show how the context menus work, show how easy it is to rearrange and reset perspectives. She'll also show the advantages of JES Explorer, how to work with projects, and how you can interface with other Compuware tools from within Topaz Workbench. So without any further ado, I'd like to turn things over to Yvette.
Thank you, Andy. I'd like to share with you the Topaz Workbench, which is an Eclipse-based framework. Within an Eclipse-based framework, you work with perspectives. Perspectives are essentially a set of actions and views associated with a particular function and can be customized. As you see here, I'm working right now within the Host Explorer view or perspective. And within the Host Explorer perspective, we have several views. We have our console view, properties view, JES Explorer views, etc. A view can appear by itself or be stacked with other views, as you see here in the Host Explorer perspective. These views can be tabbed or shown individually. They can also be moved around and pinned to other areas in your workspace. So I can drag and drop different views. I can expand and collapse any of the views. And if you're one of the lucky few who have multiple monitors on your desktop, you can actually drag and drop some of these views on those other monitors, should you want to have certain information available consistently through your usage of the Topaz Workbench. As I mentioned, I'm in the Host Explorer perspective. Compuware provides several plugins for their tools, and as you see here in the drop-down under the Compuware tab, I can access any of the specific product perspectives. The perspectives will contain information or views within those perspectives that are relevant to using that component within the workbench. And if you're like me, I tend to drag and drop views or close out views inadvertently. One of the nice things about working with the workbench is that you can always reset it. So if you go to the Windows, you'll see that I can always reset my perspective to the original default view. You can also build your perspective to look the way you want to and save that perspective. And when you reset, we'll always revert to that perspective. You'll also notice that there are toolbars within the view, within the perspectives. These are the main workbench toolbars. As you go into the different perspectives, the contents of the toolbars will change to support those functions within those views. You'll also be able to use context menus. Context menus are a number of commands that are available within the views. They will vary based on the function that you're performing within the workbench. They can be accessed by using the right-click. You will see me use this quite frequently throughout the demonstration. I'm going to start with the Host Explorer. The Host Explorer provides a convenient way to navigate the mainframe resources such as datasets, PDFs, DDIO source members, as well as the ability to perform day-to-day operations on them. In order to use the Host Explorer, you must define a host configuration. A host configuration is the ability to define a connection up to the mainframe. We use the host communication interface to give you access to those resources on the mainframe. As I mentioned earlier, the context menu, by right-clicking, will provide me with the options that are available. As you see here, I have a number of host communication interface connections defined to my workbench. This gives me the ability to access those resources within that LPAR. I'm going to go ahead and expand one of my connections to one of my LPARs. As you see here, when I expand that, it gives me access to either FileAid DB2, FileAid IMS, as well as ZOS datasets and Unix System Services datasets. In order to access the information that I want to access, the Host Explorer provides me with the ability to define a filter. A filter defines a subset of resources such as mainframe files or local files or databases within the Host Explorer view. I will once again right-click to access the context menu, and I can add a filter that will define the resources that I want to access within my LPAR. As you see here, we give you many ways that you can define your filters. So any high-level qualifier is available. You see the many different ways that you can do this. When I say OK, you'll see that my filter has been defined, and any data sets that match that criteria are listed. Once I have access to my resources, there are many things that I can do that I normally would do during using ISPF menu options. I can right-click on a data set. Again, my context menu will provide me with the options available when within that view. I can allocate a data set with the same attributes as the data set that I am currently accessing. You'll see that it provides me with a panel that defines all of the data set attributes of that file. And then I can change the naming convention to make it unique within that environment. And when I click the Finish button, oh, hang on. You'll see that the data set has been allocated. And so now I have a new data set with that naming convention, same attributes as the data set that I copied it from. I can also copy and paste members from one PDS to another using the Host Explorer. So I can copy and then paste the data set, paste the member into a specific data set. And you see here that I also have the ability to change or rename those members if I desire. When I expand that data set, you'll see that the member now exists within that PDS. You can also use the drag and drop method. Well, so a lot of the functionality that I normally would do under ISPF, I can perform using Workbench. As you see here, these functions are a lot simpler using the Workbench as opposed to using ISPF menus. Some of the other things that can be done using Host Explorer is I can edit members within my PDSs. So if I open up one of my libraries, I'm going to right-click once again to get the contents of the PDS. As you see here, I have a contents of the file. I can do all of the things that I can do normally in ISPF. I can sort by changed modules, by name, by any of the columns, by just tabbing onto the column. If I want to edit one of the members, I can go in and just double-click the member, and it brings me into edit mode. We leverage a tool called Slick Edit, which contains some intelligent editing to edit the PDS member. And because this is a COBOL program, I can navigate down into the area. As you see, the view changes. I have my edit window as well as an outline window, which highlights the paragraphs. Because this is a COBOL program, I can navigate to the specific paragraph by just double-clicking in the outline view. And you'll see that the edit view then lines up with it. And you'll notice that as I start to type in the COBOL program, I get syntax suggestions on what commands or what verbs I want to use. In this case, I do want to perform a move from one variable to another, so by double-clicking that move statement, it populates the information in the view, and it actually places it in the appropriate place within the COBOL program. As I start typing any of the variable names, you'll notice that it brings up a list of the variables that this program has access to. So I can double-click the variable name and continue working this way, as you see here. This is a great tool to use. It reduces the amount of syntax errors that occur. And if you're anything like me, I have fat fingers and I tend to make a lot of mistakes. So this is going to reduce the amount of mistakes I make while editing my source code. So I'm just going to X out of this. I can choose to save the member or not save the member. And now this is accessing the resources on the mainframe. As I mentioned earlier, we use the host communication interface to access the members that reside on the mainframe in a PDS. So this is happening live. We're not using your TSO address space to access these resources. We are, however, using your TSO credentials to ensure that you have the authority to access those resources. So we don't bypass any of the security rules that have already been established within your organization. Some of the other things that I can do is I can go in and edit my JCL. So I have JCL. I want to run a test for this particular program that I just modified. You see here that I have JCL to execute that member. Again, I'm accessing the JCL member that resides on the mainframe, and one of my options are, when I do context menu, is to submit that JCL. You see here that the job has been successfully submitted to our JES initiator. You'll also note that there's a completion notification banner on the lower right-hand side, and I can click that banner to access the output. And so I can view the output within the edit menu for this execution. So that brings us to our JES Explorer. So as I mentioned, these are views within the Host Explorer, and one of the views is the JES Explorer view. When I click on the JES Explorer view, this is essentially accessing my SDSF or IOF type functions. This view is available to view any of your output, held output. You can purge jobs within here. You'll see that it has its own set of toolbars associated with using JES Explorer. We give you the ability to filter out the queues that you want to view. So if I only want to see printed output or held output or execution, started tasks, I can check off any of these boxes and filter out only the content. Just as you do in IOF or SDSF, you can use the prefix to filter out only the jobs that you're interested, as well as the owner ID. So if you place your owner ID, then you will only see any output that's associated with your user ID, just as we do in the MVS environment. So if I click any of my outputs, again, you have the ability to sort by any of these columns. We also give you the ability to add or remove columns within the view. So if I didn't want to have some of the columns displayed, I can elect to remove them. So if I don't want to see the description, I can just remove it from my view. And when I click on any of the members within the JES Explorer view, you'll notice that the toolbar becomes active. If I want to expand the output, just as I do in SDSF or IOF, I have the ability to expand that output and see the individual members within that job stream. If I want to return to the original job, I just need to hit the back button. You'll see we give you the ability to refresh, so if I submitted jobs and they're still not showing up in my JES Explorer, I can refresh and it'll bring in any jobs that were recently executed by me. I have the ability to purge any output, so if I hit the X, and I'm not limited to just one. I can control-click multiple members and purge multiple members just as I do in IOF or SDSF. One of the other things that you can do, once again, right-click is your best friend in Topaz. If I right-click the output member, I have the ability to extract the JCL and view it. I can edit it, make some changes if I desire, and resubmit it from here. Or I can just resubmit it from my JES Explorer view. By resubmitting it, you see that the job has been successfully executed, and once again, I can view the output. Another thing that's available within Host Explorer is Project Explorer. Project Explorer is a good way to organize resources associated with a particular project. Topaz for Total Test also uses Project Explorer to maintain any of your test cases or testing components. So you see here I have, for example, I'm using it to define or to build a project associated with a particular application. When I expand this view, you'll see that I have the ability to define any of the libraries that are associated with this particular project. So if I have several libraries that define, for example, my PDA production application, I can define all the libraries associated with that particular application as well as any other supporting resources that this particular application needs, such as copy lives, map lives, any includes that the programs might need. And I can share this with my project team. All of this information is exportable within Topaz Workbench and can be shared with the team. So you can have one individual build these projects and then you can share them. You can also store them on a shared drive, and it also gives you the ability to, can be accessed by multiple users within their Topaz Workbench workspace. Defining projects is not limited to mainframe resources. You can also define any of your PC-based applications as well. So any of the resources associated with a particular application can be defined. It's just a very good place to manage any of the resources that you have associated with a particular project.
Thank you, Yvette. That was an awesome demonstration. I appreciate your time with that. So just as a recap, Yvette walked us through many of the features of Host Explorer. She demonstrated how the context menus work and how they can change based on where you are in the tool. She showed how easy it is to rearrange and reset perspectives within Topaz Workbench. She also showed how to submit and view jobs in JES Explorer, taught us a little bit about projects, and gave a brief glimpse of how the other Compuware tools can be accessed via Topaz Workbench. So mark your calendars. Next month in the Did You Know series, it will be hosted by Brad Kaler and Dennis Knack. Brad and Dennis will explore some of the features of strobe and iStrobe. So mark your calendar for January 25th at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us today. I'd like to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And with that, I'll turn it over to Janet.
Great. Thanks, Andy. Thanks, Yvette. That was a great presentation. Just a reminder to the folks out there to refresh your browsers now that we're off the screen share. And also as a reminder, before we start with our questions that started coming in, we wanted to remind you to fill out the survey so you can be entered to win a $50 American Express gift card. And don't forget, there's going to be 3 lucky people who are going to win that gift card, and just in time for the holidays. So with that, let's kick it off to the Q&A.
Okay, we've got a couple of questions out here. Actually, we've got several questions. I'm not sure we're going to be able to get to all of them just right away, but we'll address them in email if we can. One question, I think this has to do with the Host Explorer. If my PDS has hundreds of members, is there a quick way to find one particular member name? In ISPF Edit, the member list panel, I can use Command L, memname, or F, string in member name.
Yes, we give you the ability to do a search within the Host Explorer view, as well as you could build a filter that will actually just specify the one member you're interested. There's also filtering that can be used to filter out the members that you're interested in.
Okay, thank you. Another question. Let's say I have two similar JCL members. Is there a trivial way to compare the two members?
Yes, you can compare members using Host Explorer. There's a file aid essentially can allow you to compare two members and see the differences.
Okay, one other question here. Is Topaz licensed separately, or do we have access to it based on license for other product like Strobe?
Topaz is free if you have any of the Compuware tools. So you get that automatically, and it can be installed and used with any of the Compuware tools.
Okay, just skimming through here. No, we'll ask this one. If DB2 batch running or store procedures runs long, do we have a way to monitor and pinpoint DB2 statement causing slow access?
I would think you would want to leverage the Strobe product to identify that state, what DB2 instruction is causing the slow, or actually what instruction. It may not even be DB2 related, right? So Strobe would be the best tool to identify that type of issue. And that can be invoked ad hoc while the job is running.
Okay, one other question here. Can I be signed on to my TSO user ID while using Topaz Workbench?
Yes, you can, because we're not leveraging your TSO address space to access the mainframe resources. We're actually using the host communication interface. I can be logged on to Topaz as well as my TSO address space.
Okay, I think we got time for one more question. For those who have asked questions that we didn't get to, we will respond afterwards through email. And one more question. Does the source code need to be downloaded to edit using Slick Edit?
No, it does not. We are accessing, and that's one of the the great things about Topaz is that you're accessing the resources that are in the mainframe within that PDF, so nothing ever gets out of sync. We are actually editing the member that's within the PDFs up on the mainframe.
Great. The questions keep coming in. Unfortunately, we want to be cognizant of everybody's time. So with that, we are going to remind you that for those questions that we didn't have time to get to, we will certainly reach out directly with follow-up answers. And again, a reminder, please fill out the survey so you can be entered to win that drawing. We appreciate your participation and interest in today's webcast. And with that, we'd like to conclude the presentation. Have a great day and a wonderful holiday.